Today I'm talking to my friends Ashton and Zara, who were just at the UN's Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, or INC 5.2 for short, in August in Geneva, Switzerland, to put a limit on plastics. As we all know, plastics are a global pollution crisis, costing 1.5 trillion a year in global health impacts alone. We've talked about this before, and click the link below to see our last conversation, but why do we need a plastic treaty now more than ever?
First of all, it's great to speak with you again, Robert. Thank you so
Yeah,
much for having us. Thank
yeah,
you very much. And it seems absolutely critical that we have a strong global plastics treaty. As you said, plastic is no longer just a pollution issue threatening our oceans. Plastics are everywhere, from the bottom of the sea to the top of Mount Everest, the water we drink, the air we breathe, and human blood. It's impacting our health and the well-being of our planet. And therefore, it seems absolutely critical that the governments come together to create a legally binding agreement on plastic pollution.
yeah. You were at Busan last December at INC 5. Isn't this the second time these talks have failed?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Now, it seems like they've been given 2.5 years to reach an agreement for the plastics treaty. So that's plenty of time to do it. But the issue with agreeing on a plastics treaty is the way it's set up. Every single country has to agree on everything. And if one country doesn't agree, like a country that produces lots of oil and plastic, then it stops everything and slows the whole negotiation process down.
And so, while it seems really disappointing that these negotiations failed, it came as no surprise. I think most people saw it coming for INC 5.1. And for INC 5.2, we had 9 months. We were all rested and rejuvenated and ready for the final 2 weeks to get it finished. But we all eventually started to see that we were not going to leave Geneva with a finished treaty.
So the adults were not agreeing with anything and like blocking progress?
Yeah, so UN treaties are a huge process and they try to make it inclusive for every country. But the issue with trying to include every country is some people have conflicting opinions. And the only real hope to get a treaty across the line is if that's changed and switched to a voting procedure.
Got it. 234 oil and gas, petrochemical, and plastic industry executives attended the talks in August. We need to ban them from these global talks that are designed to save kids' lives.
While most of the world wants a strong treaty, there are still a few member states, and of course the lobbyists, that really don't want to see a treaty with a full life cycle approach, which could include a cap on plastic production, which of course is providing them with money. And so there is a huge push on their end to delay the negotiations. And eventually they did succeed. We should not be allowing them to have such a big say. It is essentially letting the minority veto the decision making of everyone else, which is the greatest reason why these negotiations failed.
What was the craziest thing about plastics that you learned while you were there?
I think we talked last time about plastic subsidies and how there was a report that came out which showed that in 2024, $45 billion was spent on plastic subsidies globally. Well, the third phase of the report has just come out and the stat has raised from $45 billion a year to $80 billion. For perspective, NASA's annual budget is only around $20 billion. So it's absolutely insane. And these subsidies just make plastics artificially cheaper, which increases demand in unnecessary circumstances.
That's crazy. Is there anything good that came out of INC 5.2?
I think the world started to become a lot more united over those 2 weeks. It was really clear that the vast majority of the member states and those out there involved in the plastic space really want to see a strong treaty, including with a ban on some plastics. And so that was incredibly inspiring to see. Also, the Children and Youth Major Group to UNEP, which is the main source of providing that connection between youth and children and these decision-making processes, recently launched during these negotiations the Youth Plastic Action Network, or YPAN, which is a huge step forward for the future generations in these processes.
Which we've also been a part of establishing. And so essentially, YPAN's a coalition of youth that have been involved in the plastic space to try and make it easier for youth to attend these events, and so we can all unite and strengthen as one voice.
I was trying to apply to the same conference, but I sadly couldn't make it because there wasn't enough spots.
We're so sorry you couldn't be there because we really do need more of those under 18s to bring that voice to the table. There were only four under 18s at the entire negotiations. So hopefully something will change
Yeah.
before the next INC so you can come to the next one.
We were fortunate enough to speak with someone in charge of the registration for INC, and they were really confused and shocked that there was an under 18s age restriction because under 18s are allowed to UN events if they have a chaperone. So they hopefully will fix the wording in time for 5.3 or whatever happens next.
Interesting. So what happens next?
So there's essentially no plan just yet for what will happen next that's been released. There will either be another negotiation ahead of the next UNEA, or that may be taken to UNEA for them to decide on future steps. They might finish the treaty there. They could choose to do voting, or they could choose to drop the whole thing altogether, which nobody wants, so I suspect will not happen. But those are the possible future steps.
Got it. How can kids help make sure that this time we get a strong treaty?
The most important thing is pressure your decision makers and tell them that we need a strong, ambitious, and legally binding treaty. Because the world's decision makers need to know that us youth and children really care. So please write to your decision makers, your government, and tell them.
And spread the word about plastics. The more people that know about it, the more governments will feel the pressure to actually do something to solve this issue.
Any youth can sign up to YPAN. If anyone wants to be there for whatever happens next, then they can sign up and be a part of it.
We'll put a link below. Thank you so much for joining me today, Ashton and Zara. And remember, together kids can save the world. Please like and subscribe. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.